Welcome to From Caving In to Crushing It, the podcast for those who find themselves immersed in adversity and choose to write their story instead of having others write it for them. I'm Drew Durrani, and I'm your host. Hey, Troy, so good to see you.
Good to see you, Drew. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here.
Oh, absolutely. I was looking forward to this. So the audience knows I always like to thank the individual who introduced me to my guest. And on this occasion, I have to thank STK, Suzanne Taylor King, for the introduction to Troy Siewert. Thank you very much, Suzanne. I appreciate you introducing us, and I do know why. So, Troy, the audience also knows that I often talk about that when we're young, we're taught that life is linear. It's a straight line. Troy, Drew, if you do A plus B plus C, D is going to happen. Do that stuff in that order, everything's going to be fine. And for the most part, when we're young, life is linear. And then at a certain point, something gets in the way, and then it's not linear anymore. And a diversity or a circumstance goes in between one of those letters and puts us into more of a circuitous route. When that happens, that means adversity rears its ugly head. And when that occurs, I always say there's three types of men that could show up. You could have man number one, who's got a ton of blind spots. He doesn't even notice the adversity because he's living life the way other people tell him to, and he has no clue whatsoever, and nothing changes. I don't have man number one on the show. Man number two, he has a little more heightened self-awareness than man number one, and he notices the adversity, yet he says, that's life doing it to me. I'm the victim. Everybody else is to blame. I have no responsibility or accountability in this. It is what it is. Life did this to me. I can't change a thing. And you know what? On his deathbed, he's got a ton of regrets. I don't have man number two on this show. Now, man number three, on the other hand, is somebody like Troy. Man number three certainly sees the adversity, and he finally says, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. That adversity is not a barrier. That's an opportunity for me to do something different, take massive action, and become a stronger man on the other side. So I'm going to ask Troy here to let the audience know. Troy, what was that defining moment, that tap on the shoulder, the whisper in the ear, or like I needed, the 2x4 upside my head, that transformed me from the man I was, man number one or two, to the current man you are right now? Can you tell us about that?
Wow. Well, you certainly start out with some great open-ended questions, Drew. I love it. Let me start by saying thank you for the compliment. First of all, being man number three,
Absolutely, man number three.
that is an honor to be thought of in that regard. I will tell you that I may be a little bit different from some in that I've had a series of three kind of defining moments. So I didn't have one particular crisis or tragedy or trauma that happened that then flipped the script for me. So I had a series. So I'll give you those three, and then if we want, we can go further into them. But for some background, let me tell you this. For those who don't know, I'm a retired police lieutenant. I did 30 years of law enforcement. And I can tell you that I started back in 1992, so I'm showing my age, but policing was much, much different in 1992. And I can tell you that when I went through the police academy, there was absolutely zero training on how to handle a mental health crisis call. And yet we found ourselves going to those types of calls. And I remember getting frustrated as a young officer, and I wasn't the only one. We would go to these calls and we felt like there's only three things we can do. We can either arrest them, send them to the hospital, and walk away. And so we didn't have the tools on how to handle that. We would get frustrated. So because oftentimes it wasn't a criminal offense. We couldn't arrest them, but we didn't want to just walk away. Right. And so we were kind of left with a square peg in a round hole. And trying to get somebody to go to the hospital, and if then they didn't want to go, then it became this chaotic scene that didn't need to be. And needless to say, we did a poor job because we didn't have the tools of connecting people to treatment, so they would go into crisis again, and that cycle kept repeating. And so as a young officer, it was so frustrating for me to see the same people time and time again. We signed up on that job to help people, and that yet we're going there and we don't have the tools and we're seeing them, and it was really, really frustrating. So that's the backdrop. That was to your point of, I'm sick and tired of these things happening. So the first event, pivotal moment in guiding me to where I am today was many years later. I was a sergeant. I'll never forget it. It was a Monday morning. I had finished reviewing all the reports, and I decided I'm going to take a few minutes to just have a cup of coffee and relax before I go hit the street. And that kind of, I don't want to say it was a mistake, but it ended up leading to me encountering the training lieutenant
Uh,
who walked through the office and he said, "Troy, I'm glad you're here and I saw you."
yeah, that goes
That's one of those moments when you kind of roll your eyes and you're like, I should have gone out on the street, right? And he says, "I've got a program for you that I want you to run." And I said, "Lieutenant, I have so much going on already." And I went through the long list and he goes, "I don't care. I got the bars. You got the stripes. You have the program." I said, "What's the program?" And he said, "It's CIT." And I had no idea what it was.
right.
Long story short, it stands for Crisis Intervention Team.
Mm,
And it is a team of officers who are trained to handle mental health crises. And my jaw about hit the floor because I'm thinking to myself, all these years I was going to the calls,
right,
nobody wanted to train me. Now I'm a supervisor in charge of other individuals, and you want to send me to this training. I have no idea
right.
anything about mental health related. So there was an initial resistance
Hmm.
to going to this training. But I say that it was a pivotal moment because if that had not happened,
Yeah,
I never would be where I am today.
interesting.
And
Yeah.
so I went to the training. It was a week-long 40-hour training class. And as many officers who go through the training will tell you, it's some of the best training that I've ever received at the police department. Came out and began wishing that we had more officers trained in this and realized,
Mhm.
hey, there's a lot of good things that we can do for the community. And so
Right.
we began building the crisis intervention team. And so we can certainly get into that later if you want. But fast forward a little bit as we're going to these calls and we're starting to get a little bit better at handling them and some of the skill set. That's when turning point number two came.
Okay.
We had a call a single mother who had an adult son in his 20s living with schizophrenia who was in crisis. Myself and the two officers happened to be working. We all went there, and I'll never forget. It was a spring day. They went in the house before me. As I'm walking up the sidewalk, I passed a for sale sign in the lawn. I really didn't think anything of it. It was springtime. A lot of people sell their homes. And we went in, and I won't go into the details of the call, but it was a very challenging call of this young man who had not only schizophrenia, but had ingested some cannabis. They were counteracting one another. It made things really, really challenging. Spent a considerable amount of time on the call, and we were able to get him to go to treatment.
Okay.
And what was particularly impactful about this call, and the reason I say it was turning point number two, was as we were exiting the house, the two officers walked out before me. The mother was crying a little bit, and she stopped me. And she said, "Sarge, can I give you a hug?"
Oh,
Now, this is a little different. I can assure you, with all the hundreds and thousands of calls that I had
yeah.
gone to, not many people want to give you a hug when you're the
Yeah,
police,
really.
right?
Yep.
And I said, "Well, sure." And she gave me the hug. And when she was done, I said, "Well, if you don't mind me asking," I said, "what caused you to want to give me a hug?" And she says, "I'm just going to tell you this. As soon as you leave, I'm taking the for sale sign out of my house, off my front lawn." And I said, "Okay, why?" Because she was a single mother having problems affording the home in the town that we were in, the size of the home, etc. And she said, "But I don't care because there's nowhere that I can move that the police officers will take as good of care of me and my son as you and your officers just did."
Wow.
Yeah. And it was in that moment that I just got back in my Tahoe, and before I ever put it in park, I just had to sit there and let that sink in and realize that because I had training and I
Yeah.
went in with the right mindset,
Yep.
I
Absolutely.
had the right idea and I had the skills to back it up, I made a difference in someone's life. And that
Mm,
was powerful.
absolutely.
So it really just gave me to put gas on the fire
Yeah.
continued to expand the program. I went and got all kinds of training classes, did a lot of self-education, became a certified trainer for the state of Illinois and some other organizations and institutions, and basically began training police officers how to respond to these types of calls.
That's great.
And that is kind of a collective turning point number three, because what I found was twofold in my classes.
Right.
Number one, so many of the officers absolutely loved the class.
Wow.
They said, I love this class. I wish we had had this kind of training many, many years ago. I had officers who came in that had a certain opinion and said, after taking these class, my opinion has changed. So I was able to see that now I'm not only having an impact on the individual families, I'm having an impact on officers
Mm.
who are then going to go out and impact all these other families. But the second part of that is that so many of them said, my agency, I've been waiting for 2 or 3 years to come to this class because my agency is understaffed.
Oh, wow.
They don't have the proper funding. I had to come on my own time and all of that. So that was the third turning point, which has kind of led me to where I am now. And I said, you know what? This is an important skill set for officers to have.
Mhm.
It really makes a difference to them and to the families that they serve. And they need to have access to this type of training. And so that's why I do what I do now in making training accessible to officers, even if their department can't.
That's unbelievable. Each of those turning points fed off the other.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, it wasn't one big turning
No,
point, but it was
they,
kind of a collective progression. And
yeah.
it really, really, that's how I am where I am
Well,
today. And
let's
it's
think
become my
about this.
passions.
If you were man number one or man number two during the coffee break when the training guy came in, you wouldn't have had the awareness to say yes. And even though he said bars and stripes, but then the woman hugging you, that struck a nerve, that helped you become more aware. So there are times when we're ready, we're willing, and we are ready, we're able to see the adversity in a different way, and you were certainly able to in all three of those occasions. And so I'm glad. Thanks for sharing those stories, because they definitely fed off each other. And if there were uh police units in this country doing what you're doing, I think we might be much better off right now.
Yeah, it truly is amazing because having those skills and that knowledge and that awareness,
Right.
it helps everyone, to include the officers.
Oh, absolutely.
I have said that I feel it's unfair to all involved
Hmm.
to be sending officers to calls for which they're not properly
Oh,
trained.
absolutely.
Officers don't know what to do. They're facing potential liability. They want to do the right thing, but they're afraid of saying the wrong thing. That's not a good position for them to be in. It's not fair to them,
No, it's not.
but it's not fair to the person in crisis to have somebody who doesn't understand.
Absolutely.
And then, quite frankly, the family members who just don't know where to turn. They are in the crisis moment. 911 happens to be where they're calling. We're starting to shift away from that now with 988 and some other
Right.
programs. But,
Right. Right.
um, I think that despite all of those efforts, law enforcement will always have some contact in those situations. And
Absolutely.
so for that, they need to be prepared.
They do. All right, let's speak about the 988. Are there other in other states across the country? Do they do what you're doing? Or are you still one of the few that do that? Because I don't see how putting a number in 988 out there if there's no one equipped on the other side to take care of them, you know?
Yeah, I mean, this is it's a big program. It's national. It's nationwide.
Mhm.
988 is the new version of the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline.
Okay. Okay.
So that used to be the 1-800-273-TALK.
Okay.
That line is now rebranded as 988.
Well, I'm
You
glad
can
because
call
I
for
didn't know about that other number, the talk one. I didn't know that. I know
yeah,
988.
and it's you could dial from anywhere in the country, and now it no longer has to be just suicidal ideation. It's any type of mental health crisis.
Okay, good, good.
So an individual can call, they will be routed to the call center nearest to the area code they're calling from,
Okay,
and they will talk to somebody who will then hopefully be able to talk them through the crisis
good.
and give them information about local resources.
Okay,
Now, this program is still developing, and when in some places this has already been implemented,
okay.
it just depends on where you are in the country.
All right.
But ideally, once it's fully implemented everywhere, if the people at the other end of the 988 line are unable to walk you through the crisis successfully, and there is a need to have someone respond to the house, they can then send somebody from a mobile crisis team,
Okay,
which will be comprised of a mental health professional and a person with lived experience.
okay.
That partnership, that duo, will then be dispatched directly from that, 988 to the location where the crisis is with no police involvement.
Oh, nope. Okay. And then
Right.
if police are necessary, the people at the scene, the
Can
civilian
call.
will be.
Yes. So for example, if it ends up that maybe there is an involuntary commitment or it turns violent
Right,
or there's a criminal act, and then
right.
police can certainly be called.
Okay.
So that's what it's going to look like when it's fully implemented everywhere.
All right. And so you said it would be a social worker or
No, it's a mental health
mental health,
professional.
a mental health professional. And you said somebody with lived experience. What does that mean?
Correct. Someone with lived experience is an individual who uh, has been diagnosed with a mental health challenge,
Hmm.
is in recovery, and has gone through some programs like a certified recovery
Okay,
support specialist, or
good.
depending on what state you're in, it's called different things, but it's a peer,
That's
basically. It's
beautiful.
somebody who,
Okay.
yeah, who has faced those challenges, has a little bit of additional training
Yeah.
in how to talk to somebody, and they are paired with a mental health professional, and those are the people that then respond to help the individual in crisis. So they're hoping 2027 that
Okay.
everything's going to be fully implemented. We'll see.
Beautiful. All right, great. Well, you heard it here, folks. Let's hope that gets implemented well. Uh, Looking forward to, I mean, obviously, I don't want to be having to have anybody call 988, but when we do, there's going to be something that's going to help take care of the people who need it, and that's wonderful to hear. Um, with
Yeah.
your newfound experience, how has that impacted you in your personal life?
It has given me the skills, tools, and awareness on how to communicate better.
Okay.
And I will tell you one of the big ones, and I know that you're aware of this, and that is being perspective seeking.
Hmm.
We as men, and then we as type A personality men
Yeah.
in law enforcement are very problem solving oriented.
Right. Absolutely.
And especially within the constraints of what we can do on a call, the fact that we have calls stacked up and we have time constraints, it's give me the facts, how do we solve this and how do we move on? And part of crisis intervention training and the whole concept is more about engaging in that conversation in an attempt to connect with the individual, build rapport, empathize, and understand where it is they're coming from and what their unmet needs are,
Mhm.
so that we can then collaborate with them on a solution and move forward. And they do so voluntarily because now there's buy-in. So all of that
Hmm.
translates back to your personal life
Yes, absolutely.
and in communication. So I will share with you, and I probably shouldn't do this. Maybe I won't tell my wife I recorded this podcast, but I went to um, FBI crisis negotiator training,
Okay.
and they were teaching the active listening skills so that you could better listen to somebody and develop that sense of empathy and
Right.
understanding.
Right.
And one of the things that they talked about is, they were talking about reflection and open-ended questions and really about validation.
Right.
And so I came home from a really long day of training, and they had some role plays and whatnot. and my wife had had a very, very challenging day at
Right.
work.
Right.
And of course, when you walk through the door and they've had a really emotional day and they want to tell you about it,
Hmm.
what do we as men do? It's like, just, you know, you go do my thing. But inside my head, there was that little switch that flipped, and it was like, hey, this is a good opportunity to try some of that active listening.
All right.
And
Good.
so she gave me some of the things that she was concerned about or that were bothering her. And when I just looked at her and I said, wow, I said, that sounds like it was really difficult for you. And she looks, it was. And then she began to talk for the next 5 minutes, telling me all things.
I
And
love it.
I was conflicted because part of me said, this is really, really good stuff.
Yep.
And the other part of me said, I'm now here for another
No,
10-minute
yep, another 10 minutes.
conversation.
I'm glad you did that though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
because
it really has
yeah,
it has helped me communication, you know, with my marriage, with my
yeah,
children, just with anyone. It really is about seeking their perspective and understanding where they're coming from. And
yeah,
I think we can all agree that in today's world,
yeah,
there's a lot of talking and not a lot of listening, right?
yeah, exactly. And we should be listening more because we have two ears and one mouth for a reason, right?
Yeah.
So this is fine. I find this really interesting because men in general don't really take care of themselves. And police officers usually don't take care of themselves either. They care for others, right? They are caregivers in a way, right? You're there to protect and to serve. Um, the suicide rate amongst police officers is one of the highest in any industry, and that concerns me. Knowing that and knowing a lot of the reasons why people kill themselves or die by suicide is usually lack of connection and isolation. And I would think with enhanced communication skills, they'll be able to improve their relationships and hopefully with that be able to talk about things if it bothers them and therefore maybe have a different alternative than suicide. I'm hoping there'll be a correlation to this type of training and being able to care for themselves as well as the people they're serving on the streets. What do you think about that?
Well, I can tell you I have specifically done some training around the topic of suicide in law enforcement to law enforcement agencies.
Yeah.
And first of all, there are lots of officers who do take care of themselves physically. They go to the gym and they're very proactive in that regard.
Right, right.
There clearly are some who are less aggressive in that.
Mhm.
But I think where many of us fall short, and it's to your point, and that is on the emotional level. And
Right,
I mean, cops don't do feelings, right?
right,
That's when
right.
I teach the classes and we're talking about connecting with somebody and
Yeah,
understanding where they're coming from.
yeah.
That's really hard for
Right,
us
I
as
can imagine
officers.
that. Yep.
But we talk about our own feelings. Oh, that's tough. So
Mhm.
I think what I have, this is completely anecdotal. It appears to me that when we do these classes, what I think has been effective is number one, it needs to come from somebody in law enforcement.
Absolutely. Yep.
We're a very skeptical bunch. And for somebody to come up there and tell me about what it's like in a therapy room, and that's not going to work.
Right.
So when you can have somebody who's kind of walked the walk, who's done your job, who may have been in similar shoes,
Right.
that kind of eases that barrier a little bit. But beyond that, to your point, I think teaching the skills about suicide awareness and prevention, and then some communication, really hits it from the perspective of giving officers the tools to help a fellow officer.
There you go. Right. Absolutely. Yep.
Because so often, like I said, we don't men and cops in general, we don't do feelings. Everything
Mm.
is very superficial.
Yeah.
It's like, hey,
Yeah.
how you doing? How was the game last night? Or yeah, my legs bother me, but
Yeah.
we don't sit and talk about our emotions. And so even if an officer thinks that another officer may have something going on,
Yeah.
they don't feel comfortable approaching it. They don't have the skills. They're like, how
Right.
do you approach that conversation?
Right. Right.
So being able to come in and give that training to everybody so that they're all aware of the warning signs and let them know, hey, it happens to all of us.
Yep.
And this is what you need to look for. And these are some tips on how you can approach that,
Hmm.
that I think can make the difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Is there anything else you want to tell the audience that we haven't covered?
Wow. I will say this. I mean, we've been talking a lot about police response to mental health crisis situations,
Right,
and I would just give this huge piece of advice. I mean, number one, 988 is there, so you can certainly try that before calling 911.
right.
But if you find yourself in a position where you are going to call 911, I think the first thing that people need to do is let the dispatcher know that you have a mental health crisis
Hmm.
so that they know that up front, and then ask for a CIT officer, which is a crisis intervention team officer,
Good idea.
and or some kind of mental health professional, because some agencies have co-response programs as well.
All right.
So just say, hey, I have a mental health crisis here involving my son who's living with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, what have you. He is not violent, if that's the case.
Mhm.
And I'm requesting a CIT officer or other mental health professional. That sets the tone from the very beginning that you get the right resources
Right,
dispatched,
right.
and the people who are responding are already in a better mindset.
Absolutely.
Because so often when an officer shows up, all they know is that there's a lot of yelling, there may be some pushing, maybe things are being thrown around. And if they don't know that mental health challenges are a component of that, they may draw the wrong conclusions. So,
Very
yeah,
good.
letting them know that it's a mental health crisis and requesting CIT officer or a mental health professional.
That's great advice. Thank you for sharing that. So, Troy, the audience has certainly captured the essence of Troy Siewert. They're going to want to get in touch with you, my friend. So, gang, best way to reach Troy is by his website, which is Troy Siewert. That's TroySiewert.com. It's links to everything Troy. You'll find him on all. There's so many links there. So definitely
Yeah.
get in touch with him that way. Let me see. So before we wrap up, I have two questions for you. I know you're excited to answer these. So here comes the first one. Giving you the opportunity, you're in the Troy Siewert happy place or your man cave or wherever the heck it is that makes you happy, and you're sitting down with 7 to 10 year old Troy, and you're ready to give him some advice about life. What are you going to tell him, Troy?
I don't know a better way to say it, but I also don't want to steal another man's quote. But Stephen Covey's quote of seek first to understand and then to be understood would be great advice, because I have found through my training, through the well over 1,000 mental health crises calls that I have been involved in and resolved,
Right,
is that understanding someone's perspective
right.
can truly change the outcome.
I love that. Absolutely love that. All right, so now we'll switch gears, and now you got your business brain on, and you're sitting down with a young entrepreneur, young businessman, Troy, and you want to give him advice about business. And it can be the same advice. It's up to you. What are you going to tell him about business advice?
Um, I would say don't be afraid of challenges and things that are new. They're just invitations to become a better version of yourself. Growth truly does happen outside of our comfort zone. I have done so many things that have been outside my comfort zone. To
Right.
begin with, it
Yep.
was handling these mental health calls, then running a team, now teaching officers, all the way up to giving keynote presentations in front of hundreds of people
Right.
about this topic,
Right.
all of which and it is completely new. And I will say that,
Yeah.
and I think we laughed about it on our last call, as the old man that I am, I actually started a YouTube channel.
All
So
right.
you want to talk about being outside my comfort zone, sir? That is well
There you
outside.
go, guys. Check
But you know
out the
what?
YouTube channel.
That's where the growth happens. So that's
Absolutely.
what I would tell my younger business self.
I love it. I love it. Great advice, Troy. Great advice. So I want to thank you for coming by, Troy. I want to thank you for coming into my life, my friend. And we're going to be working together. I can see us collaborating on some stuff with mental health. Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, I
And
look forward to it. Anything I could do to help advance the cause I'm in.
absolutely. I knew you'd say that, and I appreciate that. Well, keep doing what you're doing. You're a wonderful human being, man. You're helping so many people, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. And thanks for what you're doing and for the invitation to be here in front of your guests. I hope that they found it insightful and are able to go out, use some of the things that we talked about, and make an impact in their own lives as well as the lives of others. Because together we can make a difference.
I love it. Absolutely. Everybody out there, please take care of yourselves. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and give us a review to help others find it. I'd like you to answer this question. Are you living the life you want to live, or are you living the life others want you to live? I'd like you to think about that for a second, because I strongly suggest you live the life you want to live. If you want to learn more about what I stand for and my services and how I'm able to help many men get out of their own way, please go to my website at www.profitcompassion.com. Feel free to also email me at drew@profitcompassion.com. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Take care of yourself and choose to write your own story instead of letting others write it for you.